Hello, namaste, welcome. So I thought it would be important to create a little yoga 101 video. Not everyone is used to practicing yoga, especially the way that we consider it as being the physical movement of the body. So I want to help guide us into a little bit of an understanding so that you feel confident going on this journey with all of us. Now, in the most simplistic ideas of yoga, it's like a deep tissue massage, right? It's like a deep stretch of the body, which is perfect, right? Because how many times do we actually get to stretch our body and really get deeper into how we're feeling? Very rarely, right? So in yoga, we like to be barefoot, mostly because it gives us proprioception, right? We can really feel our feet grounding into the earth. We can really feel ourselves feeling nice and rooted, and it helps us with balance. So think about if you're wearing socks, or I like to say, imagine you were trying to balance on one leg on a mattress. Like it's gonna feel a little wobbly. It might feel a little fun for some, but it's mostly gonna feel unstable. Well, we do a lot of balancing in yoga. So we want our toes to be nice and fluid and grounded. And I like to call them yogi toes, right? So we want to give our bodies the opportunity to really feel ourselves get nice and balanced. So that's most of why we like to be barefoot. We also like to be barefoot though, because there's a lot of sensories in the foot. Actually, the foot has more bones than any other part of the body. There's lots and lots of bones in the foot. And so there's a lot of sensory points, there's a lot of nerve endings, and it's a really wonderful place for the mind and body to connect. Okay, so when in doubt, if you can be barefoot, or you can at least have your toes free so you can really ground and root yourself into the earth, or you can have those little toe separators. All of those things are really helpful. Okay, we also like to practice on thinner mats. So I have this nice little padded, kind of like baby mat. Looks like it's a mat for Bella. Actually, it's kind of cute, right? But it's super padded, so I can place it under my knees. Now, obviously, you can also place a blanket under your knees. And we use a lot of different props in yoga, but the wall is always your friend, right? So you can always stand close to a wall to help give you balance so that you don't feel like you're disoriented, right? Because if you're feeling disoriented, you're probably not going to feel calm. Now, we have some really important movements in yoga that will help inform or guide you throughout your practice. So first things first, when you first start practicing yoga, you want to get used to feeling your body, right? So we want to feel our body and we want to honor our body. I always say whatever's happening in your neck and in your knees will dictate your practice. So your neck is so important that we never want to strain our necks. We don't want to put a lot of pressure on our necks. We don't want to put all our weight on our necks. We want to be very mindful of our necks, right? It's like the number one goal is to protect the neck. Imagine that you're an infant and you are protecting an infant baby's neck. So protect your neck in the same way. Our knees. Our knees are our knees. You know, if you have that old soccer or old baseball or soccer type of injury, or you just have aging knees, or as some people say, bad knees, I don't think there's any such thing, right? We want to honor that though. We don't want to push past our knees limits, okay? So we want to honor the body, we want to honor the neck, we want to honor the knees. So there's a lot of movements in yoga that call for lengthening the body. So we might be really called to, let's see if I can, we might be really called to having like straight legs. But if this doesn't feel good and I need to add a bend in my knees, I need to add a bend in my knees. We want to honor that. So you're going to see a lot about the different poses where maybe they're being cued or explained or guided in a certain way that just isn't serving you. You want to honor your body, okay? Your spine, same thing with your spine. In yoga, we're always looking for a neutralized spine, not a straight spine. We're not like British soldiers, right? We just want a nice neutralized spine for our body. So we'll go into some different movements that can help guide us there. So those are basically the fundamental things to remember. Feel your body, honor your body, respect your body, your knees, your neck, your spine, any other ailments or injuries that you're presenting with. You have had rotator cuff surgery, we want to honor your shoulder, right? You have lower back issues, we want to honor that. Yoga will meet you wherever you are at, point blank, okay? We want to start to get our bodies used to moving inch by inch a little bit further, but this practice is not about touching your toes, right? This isn't a practice where you show up and you put your body in a lot of little pretzel movements. Yes, some practices look a bit more aesthetically flexible than others, but this practice is about the breath, okay? I always joke that if you're holding your breath to get your body in a movement, then you're just doing gymnastics. And actually, there's a really interesting story of how some of the yogis from East India went to Germany, and the Germans taught the yogis gymnastics, and the yogis taught the Germans how to breathe, right? So a lot of like the handstands and the things that look very gymnastics centered are influenced by that discipline. So if you find yourself trying to get into a pose and you're holding your breath, just know you're no longer in the actual philosophy practice of yoga. It's all about the breath. Also, breathing is something that we all do, naturally, but we rarely do intentionally. So after you've gotten into your pose, you feel your body, you're honoring your body, the next thing you're going to want to do is focus on your breath. Now, sometimes focusing on your breath will remove your body out of the pose, and then it's sort of like you kind of have to reground, regroup, and regather your breath again. And it's a cycle that you go through for the entire practice. Some practices give you a certain amount of time and space to really focus on your breath. Other practices, you move your body and you have to learn how to really guide your breath through some quicker movements. Either way, it is your practice, and if at any time you feel like you can't keep up with your breath, then slow the body down. Yes? Okay. Now let's talk about some fundamental postures. So the first fundamental posture is the standing posture that we call mountain pose, okay? Mountain pose is exactly how it sounds. You are standing like a mountain, right? It's a beautiful pose. Actually, my favorite pose. You can stand with your feet together, hip distance apart, or even further. The further you stand, the more stability I have. The closer, the less stability I have, right? I can use a wall to help guide me. I can use a chair. I can use some props to help me in the pose. But for the most part, this is the pose in my body, okay? So this is our first fundamental pose, just standing. Now, it looks like I'm just standing, but there's a lot going on in my body. So I'm gonna stand a little bit closer so you can see what's happening. So first we have the feet, right? So I'm gonna lift my toes off of the mat. I'm gonna drop them one by one. I wanna feel every part of my feet pressing into the earth, right? So I don't want my feet to be like in little balls on the earth, like I'm standing in like a really tight, narrow shoe. I want my feet to feel really spread out and really grounded into the earth. But I don't want my knees to lock out. So I'm standing so strong that my knees are locking. So I want a little flexion, just a little tiny bend in the knee. So instead of my knees locking, I just want a little softness in the knees. Now I'm going to bring my awareness to my glutes. And we don't want our glutes to be tight. We want our glutes to be relaxed. So relaxed knees, our feet are nice and grounded, the knees are a little bit more relaxed, and my glutes are relaxed. Now, I like to bring one hand kind of near the navel and the other hand on the back of the body. And I like to kind of get some pelvic flexion, right? You can also bring your hands to your hips. I just happen to like keeping my hands sandwiched in between my solar plexus. Okay, so this gives me some idea of where my neutrality is in my spine. So sometimes we tend to stick our tail out and stick our chest out, and there's a lot of curvature happening in my lumbar spine, or the opposite. We kind of draw everything up and in, we get some pelvic tilting that way, we draw the belly in and our shoulders, and we get a lot of flexion in the upper part of the spine, right? So what we want is we want to find what's neutral for us. So you can just play with your pelvic tilting, getting into your girdle, getting into the hips, which gets into the tailbone and the lumbar spine. And then you're going to draw your awareness through your side body. So you're going to imagine like someone's coming and trying to lift you under your armpits. And you're going to draw your shoulders into your ears, and you're going to gently float them behind you. You're not going to kind of bring your shoulder blades together so much that your chest is protruding, because eventually you will make that adjustment in your lumbar spine. We want the arms to come up and kind of ground behind us, just so we're not encapsulating the heart and getting a rounded spine, right? We want that nice posture here. Now, traditionally, you're kind of activating through your lats. So you're doing a nice external rotation, meaning like you're drawing those shoulders open and out instead of in. But this pose can very well have the hands by your side. But traditionally, you're going to feel that projection. You're a mountain. Your eye gazes are going to be forward, and your nose isn't too high. Your chin is not too tucked, right? We want a nice neutralized cervical spine right through the back of the neck. And so it's going to be, as I say, Goldilocks, just right. You're going to pretend there's that little string at the top of your head floating up, 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 up toward the sky, right? And this is the prominent movement for all standing poses. So anytime you're standing, you should have that same neutralized spine. If I'm balancing on one foot, like a tree pose or warrior, I should still be able to maintain, for the most part, right? I should still be able to maintain the pose in my body, just to give you an example, right? So it shouldn't matter where I'm at, I should still have a similar neutralized spine. So that's the first. We're gonna do a seated variation called staff pose. So the standing is mountain pose Tadasana. The seated pose is staff pose Dandasana. This pose is very challenging because we basically took the standing version of self and we sat down. So if I took myself out of this L and I stood myself up, I would look just like I was when I was standing, only I'm seated. Same thing, right? I feel myself grounding into the earth, toes to the nose, releasing any tension under the knees. When our toes are pointed, you are flexing through your quadriceps, you're flexing through the muscles surrounding your knees, right? When my toes are bent or flexed, then I'm getting some relief in the back of my knees for the most part. A little internal rotation of the hips versus externally turning out the hips. Just a little rotation, pretending I'm lifting up through my side body. Again, I'm not like this and I'm not like that. I'm nice and neutral. Shoulders kind of ground down behind me. Hands are going to go towards the earth. I'm not sticking my chest out, and I'm not sticking my chin or my nose forward. So everything's nice and neutral. This is the seated version. So everything else I do from here is just mirroring the same position, right? Looks the same. Almost doesn't matter what I do. And then I go into Shavasana, right? And now I'm in the lying down version of mountain pose. Or I'm on my belly in a prone pose, and I'm in the lying down version on my belly. Yes. Okay. So now you kind of get the idea there. The next fundamental pose is going to be tabletop. Again, in tabletop, we want that neutralized spine to greet our bodies. So I don't want to be in my mad cat back or I don't want that flexion in my lumbar spine, sticking my tail out. I want to find neutrality here. My hands are going to be right under my shoulders. My feet can be tucked or flattened. And I'm going to spread my hands the way that I did my feet, because whatever's touching the earth and grounding me, if I have my hands kind of like in little balls or something, I'm going to feel unstable. Whereas now I feel very stable. So no matter what I do, I feel stable, right? You can kind of see. So now I'm going to lengthen one leg and I'm going to go into a modified plank. So here I am in a modified plank from tabletop. Modified plank from tabletop. I can step into a full plank. I'm not up here like this, and I'm not like a hammock. I'm in a full plank. How do I know? I just drop the knee, and I'm in my perfect plank, right? Now from plank, you can go into your first down dog. Eye gazes in between your thumbs. You can take your eye gazes down toward your toes, knees, or belly button, taking the full inversion, which is my head below my heart. Now, this pose is about the spine. So if my spine is doing anything strange, I might need to bend my knees so that I can get a nice neutralized spine. Right? It's not about my feet touching the earth. If my feet never touch the earth, it just means I have a lot of tightness in my hamstrings. I could be a runner or biker, right? So this is another pose, and you should be able to go right into plank. Back to down dog, and into plank, right? So now we did some of those most fundamental poses. Standing, seated, lying down on our back, on our belly, tabletop, plank, and then, of course, downward facing dog. So those are the most popular. The rest is different things like if you're doing arm balances, if you are trying to come into maybe, actually, I'm gonna give you a fun fundamental pose. So a lot of times in yoga, you'll see all of these fancy arm balances, right? Where people are starting to do some really neat and interesting things coming into these different poses. And those are the ones that get everybody all excited, right? Well, starting here, coming into a little yogi ball, feeling the tippies of your toes on the earth, having your hands on a block, having your fingers, maybe learning how to wrap, maybe getting a little bit taller, maybe starting to draw everything together. This will start to prepare you for these other arm balances that you can play with. Now, for those of you who are looking for a little fun, one of my favorite arm balances is to get into a little side crow. So remember, you're creating a shelf with your triceps, and your back hip is coming towards your back tricep. Now, you're gonna have to get into quite a bind and quite a twist here to see if your body can kind of mesh itself together. So it's a fun little game. Now, this is a little scary trying to balance like so. So what you can do is bring your crown all the way down, and you're basically balancing on your head. So if you have a little kid vibes in you, right, you can enter your inner child play. That's one of my favorite to play around with the arm balance, and then you can do it on both sides, or you might have a more dominant side. Anyway, yoga for beginners. These are kind of the fundamental poses that you're gonna find in most classes. You have a lot of options to bypass certain poses. If you don't like downward facing dog, you can keep your eye gaze towards the top of the mat. Keep your head above your heart. Don't take the full inversion. You can come into, instead of a down dog, you can come into like a puppy pose. And you can always choose to take tabletop, right? So take your time, honor your body. But those are the fundamentals that usually help guide us through learning how to do the poses, learning how to get our bodies into these different movements. Yes, everybody knows the warriors, right? Those are your favorite poses from the standing. But remember, you're still in mountain pose. So even if you come into like a crescent lunge or a warrior one, or warrior two, or trikonasana triangle. All of these different fundamentals will come up. So as long as you feel your body in mountain. So don't forget, honor your body, do what works for you, honor your neck, honor your knees, try to ground your feet when they're touching the earth, ground your hands when they're touching the earth. Remember to take your time. If you're holding your breath and you remember to breathe again and it takes you out of the pose, that is perfect. That is yoga. It is all about the breath. And then eventually you want to start to learn how to do those deeper diaphragmatic breathings. I love to be in child's pose because you can really feel your back and your sides of your body as you inhale and exhale. You can really feel your body responding. As you inhale, everything feels like it's getting bigger and blowing up. And as you exhale, your diaphragm is creating pressure through your rib cage, making your belly expand, right? And we want to learn how to start to inhale through our nostrils, exhale out of our nostrils. That's not always easy, especially during like cold and allergy seasons. But we want to practice that. And then we want to inhale and try to exhale longer than we inhale, right? Maybe double in measure. If you inhale for 4 counts, you exhale for 8. We really want to start to train the body to relax itself when we're looking to be grounded, when we're looking to be more relaxed and calm, and then of course, get some good sleep. Finally, if you have insomnia or you just want to start to practice some wellness before bed, you can take your legs up against the wall. I'll go over there and demonstrate. You can elevate yourself, bringing blankets or pillows under your hips, and you're going to be in a slight inversion where your head is just below your heart. And this is such a wonderful way to end your evening, getting yourself ready for sleep, for rest. You just bring yourself to a wall, and then you just relax. And perhaps you fall asleep. If you're lucky, you can enjoy your personal practice. Maybe put on a little like guided meditation or some soft music, or just listen to the sound of your breath. All right, I hope you enjoyed this quick Yoga 101 session. And finally, when you hear the word Namaste, there's some really amazing philosophical meaning behind Nama. And the idea is like I honor, I bow, Nama in Sanskrit. And so you're bowing, you're honoring. In Eastern philosophy, it's very common to go to your sensei, to go to your guru, to go to your leader and honor their time, honor their presence. And in turn, they do the same thing for you. So love and light, namaste.